Imagine you have to write something difficult. Maybe it is a report, maybe it is an email, maybe you are trying to understand an idea you have never seen before. A few years ago, you might have opened several websites, taken notes, compared explanations, written a rough version, deleted half of it, tried again. Today, you can ask artificial intelligence. And a few seconds later, there is an answer. That feels like progress. Less effort, less time, less frustration. But it creates a strange question. If a tool makes thinking easier, what happens to the thinking you no longer have to do? Psychologists have a useful term for part of this. Cognitive offloading. It means using something outside your own mind to reduce the amount of mental work you need to perform. And artificial intelligence did not invent it. A shopping list is cognitive offloading. A calculator is cognitive offloading. Writing an appointment in a calendar means you no longer have to keep the date active in memory. Using navigation instead of memorizing every turn does something similar. Humans have always extended their thinking into tools. Usually, that is useful. Your brain has limited attention and working memory. If a tool handles one task, you can devote those resources somewhere else. So artificial intelligence should simply be the newest version of the same idea. Right? Wait, there is a difference between offloading information and offloading the process that creates understanding. Suppose you need to remember a phone number. Writing it down saves effort. Very little is lost. Now suppose you are trying to understand an argument. To do that yourself, you might have to identify the main claim. Separate evidence from opinion. Notice contradictions. Compare alternatives. Decide what you believe. That effort is not merely an obstacle standing between you and the answer. The effort is part of the thinking. If artificial intelligence performs all of those steps and gives you only the finished conclusion, you receive the product without necessarily performing the process. And those two things can feel surprisingly similar. You have an answer. The document is finished. The problem appears solved. But how much of the reasoning became yours? Researchers studying human interaction with fish in tel gens are increasingly interested in this distinction. Some studies find that artificial intelligence support can improve performance or reduce cognitive load. That can be genuinely valuable. If a tool handles routine work, a person may have more attention available for the difficult parts. But other research has raised concerns about over-reliance. When users consistently delegate important cognitive tasks, they may engage less deeply with the material. One recent experiment found another interesting effect. People expected artificial intelligence assistants to make simple tasks substantially faster. But in the experiment, the actual completion time was not meaningfully faster. What did change was how the task felt. Participants reported lower effort when using artificial intelligence. That is fascinating, because feeling more efficient and actually becoming more efficient are not necessarily the same thing. Artificial intelligence can remove friction, and humans generally like removing friction. But some friction has a purpose. Consider learning a new language. Looking up every unfamiliar word is slow. Having software translate the entire paragraph is fast. If your only goal is understanding that paragraph right now, translation may be the better tool. But if your goal is learning the language, the inconvenience of remembering words is part of the training. The best tool depends on the goal. The same may be true for artificial intelligence. If you ask it to format information you already understand, you may save time without sacrificing much. If you ask it to challenge your argument, it might expand your thinking. If you ask it for another explanation after struggling with a concept, it might help learning. But if you immediately outsource every difficult step, something different happens. You remove the exact moment when your own mind would have had to wrestle with the problem. This is why saying artificial intelligence makes people think less is too simplistic. Sometimes thinking less about one thing allows us to think more about something important. The question is what we are offloading, and why. A calculator lets an engineer stop performing repetitive arithmetic and focus on engineering. That is useful offloading. But imagine outsourcing the judgment about whether the calculation makes sense. Now the tool is doing something different. It is not merely carrying information. It is replacing evaluation. So does using artificial intelligence make us think less? Sometimes. but that is not automatically bad. Humans have always built tools specifically so we can stop doing certain kinds of mental work. The more important question is whether the work we remove was merely a burden or whether it was the part that produced understanding. Artificial intelligence makes it incredibly easy to receive answers. That may become one of its greatest benefits. It may also create one of its strangest challenges, because an answer can arrive before we have done enough thinking to know why it is the answer. And perhaps the skill we need in an age of artificial intelligence is not refusing to offload our thinking. It is knowing which parts are safe to give away, and which parts were the reason we were thinking in the first place.